For today's cup of coffee, we're going to feature another article by Nick Redfern, and this is from November the 28th of 2019, and it's entitled Men in Black, Demonically Possessed and Controlled.
Demons!
And this does come from the website Mysterious Universe, and I always post a link. Not only do I verbally give credit to the author, but I also post the actual article. Fair use.
Yeah, it is fair use.
Yeah. Because I'm one of these, I do not believe in stealing other people's anything.
No, because it's plagiarism.
Well, it's plagiarism. It's just rude.
Yeah.
You don't steal people's stuff.
No, ever.
And to a degree, this talks about, in a way, stealing somebody else's stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Including their personage, to use yesterday's word.
That's not a word.
It is a word. It actually is a word. Child has burned himself with cigarettes, so he really doesn't need to smoke. But anyhow.
I singed the hair.
God help. We've not even been 5 minutes in.
Got a good blister going on.
Okay. Anyhow, Mr. Redfern.
Lovely.
Writes, last week I received a lengthy, rambling series of messages from a guy in Salt Lake City, Utah, that amounted to 11 pages in single-spaced word. He didn't include the size of the font. Now, if it was 8 point, that's one of those you need a magnifying glass to read. So, but anyhow, it must have been impressive. He says that Sam, which is his real name, is a 20-something who has never seen a UFO, has never been abducted by ETs, and has never had a particular interest in the subjects of UFOs and alien life. For a while, however, he did dabble in the occult, which very well may have led to what occurred. Sam found himself in a very weird situation that began in late August of 2019, and that he claims is still going on. On the first night of weirdness, he woke up around 5 a.m. in a state of complete confusion on his bed rather than in it.
Me too.
Now
that's most days.
That's a really, as far as, do you sleep on your bed or do you sleep in your bed? I don't know. I think that could have been explained.
In technicality, you sleep on your bed, but if it's if it has covers in it, then you sleep in it.
That's like, does something burn up or does it burn down?
I mean, the smoke goes up. If you want to get technical with
Well, that's what he's doing. So I'm a little confused there. Was he astral projecting? Was he floating above his bed?
Was he high? Was he on shrooms? Was he on acid?
We haven't got to that part yet. That's always a possibility. Anyhow, let's see.
Then yeah.
Sam had an extremely strange nightmare of having been placed into a state of what he called mind control a couple of hours earlier, which would have put the time it all began around 3 a.m. In that same nightmare, Sam got out of bed, dressed, and exited his apartment. But that's not all. When he dressed, it was not in his regular casual clothes. Rather, it was in a black suit, which he put on without giving it a thought. I should stress that Sam didn't own a black suit. So one would think that, okay, this is...
So then it wasn't him.
Alternate reality or parallel universe thing.
You know what this is? It's a clusterfuck.
Well, yeah, it is, and it gets worse. Sam cannot remember what happened after he left the apartment. That is, until he arrived at the doorstep of an apartment only 2 blocks down from his. He recalled knocking on the door, which was opened by a woman with a blank look on her face, and who seemed to have no problem about letting a complete stranger into her home. By now was around 4 a.m. Sam recalls entering the living room with the woman in front of him. He then warned her never to talk about a UFO encounter she had had just a few days earlier, a case that involved missing time but not an abduction. In his strange state, Sam could hear himself saying the threatening words, but it was as if, quote, "it wasn't me saying it. It was coming from my mouth, but it wasn't me, end quote. That's a little close to home right there.
Yeah.
Sam then left, walked back to his home, and went to bed. He fell asleep and then woke up around 5 a.m., as described earlier. In the morning, the suit was nowhere in sight. All that was left were the vivid memories of that odd night of what Sam fully believes was a case of possession rather than just a bad dream. Sam claims that roughly the same scenario has now occurred on 3 occasions. He wakes in the early hours, dresses in a black suit, which is never still there when he wakes at his usual wake-up time of 7 a.m., and then heads off to the home of the targeted individual, which so far is always the same woman. As with the first occasion, he cannot recall how he gets to the home of the person, although he recalls walking back. Oddly, even though he knows the woman lives nearby, he is never able to find her apartment when he is in a normal state during the day. It's as if he believes that he's being prevented from finding the location until he was required to make another late-night threat.
So, are they just like doing the voodoo stuff on him? Hypnagogue?
It could be. Let's see. It says, then he has no problem at all finding the site. It's a result of all this undeniable weirdness that Sam chose to contact me, and that again is Mr. Redford, Nick Redfern. Instead of red rum, we got Redfern.
Redfern!
Redfern.
Oh.
I don't want to go
And
there.
Redfern has done some online research, and he thinks that Sam had, Redfern has also written several books on Men in Black and one on Women in Black phenomenon.
I've never heard of Women in Black.
I think that that's a little too 2020 on that. Anyhow, Sam believes that demons have control of him, and that those same demons are behind the Men in Black phenomenon. In Sam's world, those same demons use us in a hypnotized state to prevent people from getting too close to the truth of UFO enigmas, which is, in Sam's view, demonic also. And they do that by literally turning random people into Men in Black by a temporary possession of people like Sam. Now, there is such a thing as temporal possession, which is a temporary state of possession.
Right.
It can come and go. We have seen that.
We have.
I wish we hadn't, but... So this is, like I said, this is one of those, oh, this is cool to, oh, shit, we've lived this.
To fuck off.
Yeah, well, when Mr. Redfern, again, he states, when I began to dig into the story deeply, I realized that it was very similar to the one Timothy Green Beckley had shared with me back in September of 2010. And the story, in Tim's own words, went as follows, quote, there was one case where I might have been threatened by a man in black. There was a publication I wrote for in the 1970s called Official UFO. They published their address in the magazine, so they did get a few crackpots of crank visitors
smokers.
to the offices. That's always interesting when crazy people show up on your doorstep.
Yeah.
One of those was a gentleman.
You don't want a crackhead on your front
No, we don't want a crackhead or a meth head on our front porch. One of these was a gentleman who claimed he was being stalked by the Men in Black, end quote. As Tim told me, Mr. Redfern,
end quote,
he eventually got to meet a guy who would later turn out to be an alleged Man in Black. They had a degree of correspondence for a while, as well as a few face-to-face encounters. By the end of the 1970s, however, things started to get very menacing, as Tim told me. Hold that thought. Hold that thought. What?
Okay. Now, first of all, Men in Black are not just some random people they choose to be Men in Black.
This is a theory.
It's a bullshit theory.
Well, listen to the theory. Keep an open mind. Keep an open mind.
All right.
The man in question made a number of disturbing calls to Tim's home phone number, which led Tim to contact the police. When the police tracked down the strange character in town, Tim finally got the lowdown on who exactly the man was. And it transpired that he was a homeless character spending his nights and days in the Grand Central Terminal in Manhattan, New York. There was a very good reason, beyond just the threats the guy made, why Tim was concerned. Tim explained to me that the man, quote, must have called 50 times and left crazy, threatening messages that would go on and on. I spoke with his parents, that is, Tim spoke with his parents, who were in Florida, and they said that although he wasn't always like this, something came over him now and again, end quote. That's another oh shit moment for us.
That's a no moment for us, too.
Transient possession. Tim had an intriguing theory, one that echoes the story told to me last week by Sam. Again, this was 2019. Tim said, quote, with cases like this guy, where something came over him, and with the men in black, it's like a possession, where a paranormal force takes possession of the person and they become the man in black, doing what the force wants them to do, but without their knowledge. Afterward, they might not even remember any of it. These people are living on the fringe of society. They are simple-minded people who can easily be controlled and influenced. Someone, say, who might be living in some rundown apartment is taken over in a kind of trance, and then he becomes one of the men in black. He threatens someone, and then he goes back to his normal life after the possession ends, and he doesn't remember it. But while he is under the control of whatever is doing this, he's not quite right.
Then how do you explain the hairless, the bald, the eyebrowless?
Wait. And like a zombie is the best way I can describe it. We almost through here.
Human eggs.
Mr. Redford had said, I have to say that all this paints a very strange, even sinister picture. The most likely scenario is that Sam was already aware that I had previously addressed this very same theory in my 2011 book, The Real Men in Black, that the men in black might actually be regular people in the throes of possession and used by something. The least likely scenario is that supernatural demonic entities are using us as vessels, a means to threaten witnesses to UFOs and to paranormal phenomena. And Mr. Redfern, which I said, this is interesting because he quotes, I personally go with the most likely angle. Okay, he's writing books about this and yet he's a skeptic? That's odd.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand a healthy skepticism, which all of us must have.
I mean, absolutely. You have to have a healthy amount of skepticism, but you cannot be a full-on skeptic and then write about this stuff seriously, like...
I don't know. Anyhow, then he goes on to state, the fact is, though, that in most Men in Black encounters, the witnesses describe the Men in Black as acting very strange, as if they aren't fully self-aware and as if they are performing a role, but they don't completely understand what that role is, beyond making that veiled threat to keep people quiet about their particular encounter with the UFO or paranormal-based phenomenon. I found that a very interesting article.
I mean, I agree. I find it very intriguing, too. But...
Now, I have heard other encounters of the Men in Black where they were not bald.
Okay.
Seriously, they were just... That was the reason that people thought they were government agents or something.
Right.
Because it was the black suit, white shirt, black tie, sunglasses, and people thought they were just agents, you know, and so that,
okay.
And it was more like the movie Men in Black.
Right, okay, then maybe.
But now, as far as this Women in Black thing that dude is writing about, I have never heard of that before reading some of his articles.
I've never heard of that in general, from anyone.
Inclusive. Anyhow.
I mean, I have no problem with inclusivity, whatever, but like that, no.
I have a problem with it if people making shit up.
Yeah, that part honestly just seems like made up because there are no encounters.
None that we have heard of. Now, I have heard of encounters This one guy specifically who had this woman that was, he found out was reptilian, and he saw her shape shift. That's a pretty cool interview. We'll save that
Yeah,
for
but that's
another
different
time.
than...
It is not. I mean, yes, it is. It was not a man in black or a woman in black or whatever.
Okay.
Now, within this, because not necessarily the men in black scenario, but as far as the possession thing, yes. Could there be other explanations? Yes. One of them is dissociative identity disorder. They used to call that multiple personality disorder, which there is a question of, is it a matter of DID or is it a matter of demonic something?
I want to go into the realm of mind control.
Well, we were discussing as far as MK Ultra.
Mm-hmm.
And even as far as, the LSD and different agents and stuff like that were given to people without them knowing it. We don't know that there are not areas of the country that are being sprayed with some of this stuff.
Right.
Now, we're seeing some mind control or some kind of something going on now. And
that's true.
That people are totally irrational.
Mm-hmm.
So how much is on drugs? How much is mind control? How much is demonic possession or demonic influence? You can be oppressed and not be possessed. And even with the transient possession, where there are times that you are not possessed or times that the person is not possessed. I wish to God that this was something I had read rather than something I had lived.
I do agree with you on that.
And it could be, the one guy, as far as the rambling things and stuff like that, there could have been an issue of schizophrenia.
Yeah.
Because
there are a lot of schizophrenics that say that they're people or things, and they're not.
Right. That was like the man who said that his friend was Saddam Hussein.
There was someone in the mental institution, and they thought Michael Jackson was sitting right across from him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very interesting, if you all have never spoken with schizophrenics, it's interesting, and you learn you do not, as far as when they're delusional or hallucinating or whatever. We don't know that they're not seeing what they're seeing.
One thing that fascinates me on that is, why do they fixate on celebrities? Is that because that's who is most popular?
Could be.
Or who's most...
Could be that they had a fascination with that individual.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same thing with, accounts of reincarnation. We've spoken before where everybody was Napoleon or Cleopatra.
Well, damn, if I was Napoleon or Cleopatra, I got screwed over in this lifetime.
Yeah, really? Didn't we all?
Yeah. We got majorly screwed over if we were that.
And it's not that all schizophrenics... I have worked with schizophrenics that did not believe that they were, some kind of celebrity or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I have never met one that was not tormented on some level or another.
Right.
And that's true. A horrific thing to observe.
Most schizophrenics are tormented, if not all.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that they see, each one that describes them are very similar.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is freaky.
It is freaky.
Of course, that doesn't go into the Man in Black, but at the same time it does, because it could be either mind control or schizophrenia, one of the two. Or as something else. It could be a multitude of things.
Right. But now, as far as the threatening behavior of the people that had, witnessed some kind of paranormal or UFO-related something to threaten them into silence.
But there are a lot of people that have done that. Why don't they go after everyone that has seen it?
That's a good question. You
got to think on that.
Sure. Yeah, because there are, and especially nowadays, there's such a flood of UFO sightings.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
And I haven't heard of a flood of Men in Black encounters.
That's true, but like you said,
And that very well could be self-disclosure.
I'm more leaning to that, but you know,
But I'm also one of these that believes that these are not crafts and beings from our universe, but from, another dimension.
yeah, the more and more we read into this stuff, I'm starting to sort of think that too, but at the same time, it's like...
Now, you got to realize the bad guys can disguise themselves as good guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's where you've got to have discernment about this. And you have to observe someone for a while. Because if somebody is lying, sooner or later they'll slip up.
Absolutely, even if they're a good liar.
Mm-hmm. And for someone to be consistent for years,
Mm-hmm.
that's not a lie. That is that person's truth on that. And it's like, do I believe that there are more things that we don't understand and know than what we do? Absolutely. So, I thought that was highly interesting. Like I said,
I thought that was interesting too, and it's like, I wish we didn't have some of the personal experiences that we do.
absolutely.
But, you know, oh well.
Or what are we supposed to do with these personal experiences other than sharing them in a
I mean, we're
video?
talking about them, yeah. We're talking about them publicly.
Right.
So,
and maybe other people will, with our experiences, maybe they will contact us.
Right.
Because there's a lot of people that are very isolated because they have had these experiences.
Absolutely. There's a lot of people that think they're just insane because...
Absolutely. And why? Because that someone has experienced something that another person did not.
Mm-hmm.
That's not valid. I mean, that's just like as far as emotions. Something can happen, one person reacts to it, another person does nothing.
Right.
And you have to listen to individuals and find out where they're coming from on all this stuff.
Absolutely, you do.
So, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you have had experiences with the supernatural, paranormal encounters with UFO, aliens, Men in Black,
cryptids, big feet,
the chupacabras, we're still waiting on the Wendigo.
Found out there's a difference between Wendigo and Skinwalker.
Right, we're still waiting on that.
I know. It's a rabbit hole.
Well, it is. If you have local legends, family legends, any of that stuff, something that we may not have mentioned or can think of in the moment, email us at cupofcoffeewithscream@gmail.com, and the email is in the description box.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, keep pondering, keep thinking.
Look to the skies.
Look to the skies every single day. And as far as discernment, pray for discernment.
Yeah.
And you all have a beautiful, blessed day. Bye.
Bye.